Welcome back to another Bit Legends video. Today, we're talking about the engineer talents. All right, fellas. So here we go. Let's take a quick little peek at the tree. Engineers hot off the presses. It's possible there could be a couple changes, bug fixes, whatnot, because this literally came out 2 days ago at the time of filming this. But this is very exciting for a handful of reasons. The main thing is that buffs and debuffs are being added into the game with this. So for me, that means that the future has a lot, assuming all this stuff works and they get all the kinks worked out and all that stuff. Nobody that I know has been able to test this yet, but this means to me that there's a very interesting, very bright future for the game. We're seeing buffs and debuffs. I mean, we're only in early access, so this is amazing. This is exciting. Let's talk about it, and let's talk about the first line, which is machine. So in the top, you see the line going straight across, and then it skips down to the bottom, and then the bottom line is straight across. The middle line straight across, here straight across. So the tree, the order that you have to get is pretty much straightforward. Let's start talking about these skills. Hit points in the top goes up to 5%. Speed in the bottom goes up to 5%. Restores up to 5%. So if you max at 5%, hit points each round. So that is important for a tank, a little bit less important for a DPS because hopefully you guys are staying alive. But if there's not a lot of heals flying around, this might help with DPS as well. But the reason why this is more important is because you're getting less heals from the pet, so this is actually significant. If you are a DPS player, you got a lot of agility, you're attacking frequently, I mean, this by itself might be enough to just keep you topped up and keep you healthy. So yeah, that's valuable. And then down here, dodge. So if you're a tank, that goes up to 5%. Dodge would be valuable there. Check this out. This is where the tree starts to get interesting. So enhance absorption. Shield generated by absorption is increased, and it goes up to 30%. So the way I read this is, if you have absorb on your character, an attack comes in, you absorb the attack. Let's say the attack was for 100 damage. I believe the way that this reads, shield generated by absorb goes up if it's maxed 30%. So if the damage coming in is 100 damage, you're going to absorb and get a shield that's going to give you 130 on the shield. So that's interesting. That's kind of spicy if you have a build that has a significant amount of absorb on it to make it worth it. What is a significant amount? I would say over 5%. You'll start to see some value on this because you're sinking 10 talent points into this thing. You're going to want to get your value out of it. And let's continue. But it's very interesting. Let's continue through. When dealing damage, restores extra 5% of hit point shield for self and another random ally. So here it's nice to see that you're getting something that can kind of protect other allies on your team. Again, we don't have redirect, so this is going to have a little bit more value there. But when dealing damage, restores 5% shield for self and another. So I'm assuming that each attack that you do is generating 5%, not that you have to use a shield skill, because we haven't seen any shield skills in the game. We've only seen shield pets. So there you go. Every attack, 5% shield for yourself, 5% for another ally. If you're a DPS, this might be enough to keep you happy and healthy. If you're a tank, you're probably going to enjoy this a little bit. And then shield conversion. Okay, so we've got shield generation, shield conversion. I believe this means that the incoming shield you get, so let's say a pet is going to shield you, you're going to get 5% more shield on that. So I think it's significant. It's still, you're getting 5% of shields. Right now, shields aren't super important. There's not shield skills on weapons that I've seen. It is nice when you can get shields, of course, so you're mainly getting it from absorb and from your pet. This might be more significant in the future as we kind of get some builds fleshed out. Over here in the fourth tier, increase the upper limit of shield by X%, and it can max out at 100. So what the hell does this mean? Shield maxes out at 50% of your health. So if your character has 1,000 health, you can have 500. Yeah, I'm doing that right. 500 shielding on you. If you max this out, let's see, shield by 5%, max it. Yeah, you can get another 50%. So your base shield caps at 50%. With this skill maxed all the way out, this talent maxed all the way out, it'll go up to 100%. This is amazing, especially on a tank. This is amazing. Is this line good enough to justify going that deep in the line just to get a ton of shielding? Maybe. Now here's the thing. I have had experiences with shield cap items, and They look so juicy, so spicy on paper when you read them, but here's my experience in actually playing the game. If you have a ton of shields, so much that you're overcapping and you're generating so many shields that you can get up to 100% shielding, the content that you're doing is so easy that it doesn't matter if you have shield cap. Let me explain that in another way. If you're fighting against, let's say you're fighting against the boss, world boss, and he's not doing enough damage to continually just knock off your shield and hit your health, the fight is so easy that you having more shield does not matter. And then the vice versa. Let's say you're fighting world boss and he is just beating the snot out of your tank. You're not going to have enough shield to even care about having overcap. Does that make sense? So sorry to kind of remove anybody's dreams, but this is nice to have. This is a luxury. This is not a necessity, and it wouldn't make me go and spend all these points to get that, unfortunately. But that's just the realistic situation. And the third time, if the content's super easy, you have a ton of shields, but it doesn't matter if you have a ton of shields because the content is easy. If the content is hard, you're not going to have any shields, and this won't do anything for you. And you'd rather have your points in something that would give you like damage reduction or block or something to keep you safe. And then the last skill, anti-power armor. Now this is really interesting. SP cost 40, triggered only once. That's interesting. We haven't seen the words triggered only once. I don't know if this, I guess this means you can use it only once, but is it per battle or per adventure? I think this means per battle. For each individual fight, you can use it once, because that's how all the other 5th tier skills are worded. Targeted ally gains anti-power armor. So this is a buff. This is the first buff that we're seeing. Increases absorption by 100%, takes 3 attacks damage, and increase converting of absorbed damage to shield by 100%. So now this makes the entire line crazy. I'm assuming that you can target yourself. So for tanks, this would be amazing. This means you're going to absorb the next 3 attacks, and they're going to give you even more. They're going to give you double the shield they would have given you ordinarily. Holy crap, that is crazy. This is going to save a life. I don't know if the autopilot is going to use these kind of skills. It would be pretty cool if it could use them, or if it could use them in a way that was meaningful. It might just blow this thing every fight in the first round, but that might still have some decent effect. And if you're autopiloting anyway, you're not really worried about it. So this skill is amazing. And again, this is a buff. This is the first buff that we're seeing. Is there more? Well, let me scroll down and I'll show you. In the second line, this is called program. Let's zoom over here. I'm struggling because, again, we're on the phone. All right, I did my best. Top line goes straight across. Bottom line, it goes down, and then the last ones are connected. So pay attention to the tree. Look at it. Keep looking at it. All right, moving on. Strike. Strike, I believe, is triple hit. I do believe it's triple hit. So if you're DPS, obviously that's great. Damage, also very exciting. Let's try to zoom. Why won't it let me? There we go. We can zoom. 2-finger zoom. I actually knew the son of the guy who developed 2-finger zoom on phones like 15 years ago. Very interesting. Anyways, not about me. You're getting block. I'm still struggling with zoom. Element resistance. We do not know how significant element resistance is going to be. This could be a big deal. This could be not a big deal. I guess we'll find out. Dodge, deflect. This is one of the first times I've seen them use the words deflect instead of diversion. I do hope this means that they're going to change all the diversion text to deflect, because this is an update. I would like that, because I think diversion is very confusing. People read diversion and think it's like redirect, but it appears to be deflect. And actually, when you see the battle text, it says reflect. So if it was up to me, I would change diversion and deflection and all that. I would just use the word reflect, because when I hear deflect, that means you throw a rock at me, I use my tennis racket and I bat it to the side. I've deflected the attack. Reflect means you throw a rock at me, I use my tennis racket, boom, sends it right back at you, you take damage. But whatever. So anyways, deflect. And then down here, when using any SP skill, gains 50% chance to restore 20 SP for a random ally whose SP is not full. So that's pretty cool. You're giving SP to others, so that's kind of continuing this support theme that we're kind of seeing with the NG. That might actually be significant. If you pair this with your NG having a lot of speed and a lot of agility, a really high turn rate, if you're having a turn rate all the time, then 50% chance if you're attacking, 3 times or 4 times every time that your friends attack, that's two times that you're going to give somebody SP. This could be stacked with a lot of turn rate, a lot of speed, a lot of agility, and that could be very, very powerful. That skill alone might be enough to make everybody want an NG on their team, like maybe at least one. So I do think NG is going to be relevant. And here we go. So quantization. Here we go. When each round starts, there is a X% chance to recover 10 SP. This goes up to 70%. So if you max this, each round you have a 70% chance to recover 1 SP. Like I said, if you pair this one with index, you are going to, if you have a high turn rate, a lot of agility, a lot of speed, a ton of turn rate, you're going to get a ton of SP for your character. You're going to get a ton of SP for your team. These two things together makes NG pretty juicy. And then here we go, algorithm. Triggered only once, so I believe that means you can only use it once per battle. Increase the targeted ally's attack and crit by 50%. Buff effects will disappear after any action of the ally. So it only works for 1 attack, but you're getting attack and crit by 50%. If you're putting this on a DPS character, you're probably going to cap their crit because DPS, or come close to, because a lot of DPS are going to want to run crit. So 100% crit basically. And then 50% more attacks. This is exciting. I think they should let you use this more than 1 time per battle, honestly, to get a lot of value out of it. I still think it's good as is, but if you really want to kind of have this NG that is a support character that's kind of adding some flavor, like I said, get a high turn rate. You're pumping SP out for your team, you're pumping SP out for yourself, and since this is very expensive for SP, you can, if you're getting a ton of SP, you can use this more frequently if this wasn't just once. But as it is right now, it's only once. Now, the thing you have to ask yourself, so it costs 40 SP, and it increases the attack and crit by an ally by this much. So the way you have to balance out a support character is, okay, if I had a support character on my team, is he going to help the other DPSs and the other characters do more damage than he would if I took the support character off my team and just replaced it with a DPS character? So in order to use this skill, I'm spending what I think is a whole bar of SP and an attack just to buff somebody else by 50%. Is it enough? Now, if you did the build that I talked about where you're doing a lot of agility, a lot of speed, and you have a high turn rate, then losing an attack is not a big deal just to buff somebody else, and losing all that SP, if you're getting a ton of SP, is not a big deal, and that makes it a little bit more viable, but it kind of stings that you can only use this once. But let's say you have a big heavy hitter on your team. You've got one of the boys, you got Diver, you got Bop, the big heavy hitting fellas on there. You buff them, then it might actually, the math might actually work out for you. But either way, it is possible to see some tweaks and whatnot to make this NG support build that I'm trying to cook up here viable. But let's get down to the bottom talent tree system, and let's look at it. So in the top row, the first 2 are connected, but the last ones are not. In the bottom row, only the middle ones are connected. The middle. And then in the very bottom row, they are connected. But those are pretty exciting, and we'll get there when we get there. Okay, so tier 1. You get block, goes up to 10. You get damage reduction, goes up to 5. So is this going to be a tank line? I don't know. Let's find out. Second row, crit goes up to 5%. Hit point leech goes up to 5%. You guys know how I feel about this. If you're a DPS and you want to just kind of keep yourself topped off, I think leech has some value there because maybe your team doesn't have a lot of team heals. Maybe you're not getting a lot of healing from the pet. So maybe the DPS do have to kind of keep themselves healthy, so that could happen. Personally, I'm more interested in getting the crit if I'm a DPS player, but you might need to pump another talent just to get enough to go into the next tiers. And let's talk about the next tiers. Tech weapon study. So when equipping, laser gun, laser cannon, energy cannon, electro-optic cannon, laser gatling, your damage goes up. So nice flavor. NG prefers those lasery weapons. A little bit of flavor here for you. So when you're selecting your weapon, I hope there's a lot of synergy in the game. They put a lot of like, okay, we're releasing a laser cannon. We want to put a bunch of NG centric kind of bonuses on it and make the synergy there. So I'm expecting that to happen, and I hope it does get more flavor and kind of make it more of that RPG feel that we're looking for. Let's drop down to the second row. Life Quantification, hit points, okay? And then in the bottom, check this out. When taking first action, deals 20% of hit point damage to random enemies with full hit points and reduces people. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So I believe this means at the beginning of the battle, so that your first attack in the battle, you're going to deal 20% of max hit point damage, which is a really big. That's very different from 20% of their current health. This appears to be 20% of their maximum health to 2 random enemies that have full hit points. And since this is your first attack, all the enemies could have full hit points, so that's not a big deal there. But check this out. Reduces their speed by 10%. So this is the first debuff. The first debuff that we're seeing in the game. Now, it doesn't say how long this reduction lasts. Is it for 1 round? Is it for the rest of the battle? It doesn't say when it ends, so I'm going to have to assume that this lasts forever. And if it does, minus 10% speed might be significant. That's interesting right there. So you can kind of already theory craft up an interesting NG build, support, suppression kind of thing. Let's go over to the fourth row. Fourth column, I should say. Firewall, you get 10% element resistance. Again, we don't know how significant element resistance is going to be, whether it's amazing or not a big deal. And then here, you can get up to 2.5% speed. So kind of expensive for 10 points, but you're getting the resistance. And then here we go. The last skill, the last talent for me to talk about, as I accidentally scroll past it. Why is it doing that? Here we go. System. And let's see, triggered only once. SP cost is 40, so again, I believe that is your full bar. Reduces enemies attacking damage by 30%. Crit strike, or crit, comma, strike, comma, block, comma, dodge, comma, deflect, and absorption get invalid. Disappears after 2 actions. Okay, let's figure out what we think this means. Reduces their attacking damage by 30%, but does it reduce their crit and all those other things also by 30%? Or I think this means that the target can't crit, can't strike, can't dodge, can't deflect, can't absorb for 2 turns. That is massive. Damage reduction is not listed. But yeah, I think this means that the enemy can't proc those things. It doesn't say damage reduction on it. So I think this kind of counterbalances out the skill that we saw in the Kung Fu Master, where it ignored damage reduction. It also ignored block in there. So block is kind of getting thrown under the bus by 2 different skills. But wow. This just turns off their offensive and defensive bonuses. That's pretty crazy. And it disappears after 2 actions. And typically tanks attack a lot less frequently than DPS players. So you put this on a tank, I mean, you might be able to pump 2 or 3 rounds into him before he gets a chance. Oof. That's a cool skill. That's a debuff, fellas. So debuffs are now in the game. So all in all, I'm excited about NG. I think it's really cool they added it to the game. We have debuffs now. We have buffs now. Will there be some sort of icon? Will there be some sort of like, see this little lightning bolt? Will this little lightning bolt appear over the character's head when he has the debuff? Or will it just be some sort of attack animation that we have to pick out? I hope they put some sort of indicator so we know that this thing is being used, so we know this thing is on us. I'm very excited to see buffs and debuffs in the game. And these are interesting debuffs and buffs. These are things that matter. Yeah, this is going to be significant. But Are you going to want to run NG over the other options? I think it's spicy. Personally, I would like to have an NG on my team. You got 5 slots. Everything is 5-man content, so that gives you a lot of variety. I would definitely enjoy to have an NG on my team, regardless which build they go. I think that this ability could save an enemy, or save a teammate. Increase absorb by that for 3 attacks. I mean, you absorb the next 3 attacks. That's pretty juicy right there. And then over here, target allies attack and crit. I wish this skill was usable multiple times in the same battle, because that would really make the support start to sing and start to be valuable. But also, we don't know if the autopilot can use these skills, and would the autopilot just use this on the wrong guy? Would the autopilot just use this on yourself constantly? Would it use it on your tank constantly? Would you get value out of this? So there's a lot of things that might not make this work out, but if it does, that's pretty cool. And then this could just be game breaking, or if you're struggling on a really difficult boss, let's say you have to do some really high trials level, and the boss is a tank and you just can't crack him, or you're doing world boss and it's just crazy defensive bonuses, just turn them off and blow them up. But you need a lot of SP to do it. So you're going to want those SP generation skills. This is exciting. What a time to be alive, fellas. What a time to be alive. As always, I appreciate you guys for watching these. And I will see you in the next video.